Welcome everyone. Today we are going to discuss heparin warfarin heparinization. The contents of this presentation include history and discovery of heparin, what is heparin and warfarin, what is the pharmacology and the mechanism of action, what are their uses, what is hep block that we use in CV line, what is DVT prophylaxis and treatment, what is anticoagulation, how we start, monitor and stop the anticoagulation therapy, and how we treat the heparin and warfarin overdose. So, the history of heparin. This is the Johns Hopkins Institute in America where the heparin was first discovered. It was discovered by J. McLean and William Henry Howell in 1916, although it didn't enter the clinical trials in 1935. It was originally isolated from dog liver cells, hence the name heper, which in Greek means liver. McLean was a second-year medical student at Johns Hopkins Institute at that time and working under the guidance of Howell. This is an electron micrograph of activated mast cell releasing granules of heparin. Later in 1837, Best and colleagues published their observation that heparin prevented thrombus formation in dogs. They also stated that heparin infused in the brachial artery results in the significantly increased clotting time. Before 1940s, Professor Howell was widely credited with the discovery of heparin, although Best and many others contributed to its development. So the history of warfarin, how warfarin was discovered. In 1920, there was an outbreak of previously unrecognized cattle disease in the United States. Many cattle died, and the main cause of death of all these cattle was bleeding. In 1921, a Canadian veterinary pathologist, Frank Schofield, determined that the cattle was ingesting moldy silage, which functioned as a potent anticoagulant. He later on conducted experiments on healthy and moldy silage, and in 1929 Roderick demonstrated that the condition was due to the lack of functioning thrombin. In 1933, Carl Paul at University of Wisconsin isolated and characterized the hemorrhagic agent from the spoiled hay and named it dicomarol. Dicomarol was a product of plant molecule coumarin, and it should not be confused with coumadin. The first drug in this class widely commercialized was dicomarol. The term warfarin indicates an acronym WARF for Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, and warfarin was first registered for use as rodenticide. Later in 1951, an army inductee attempted suicide with warfarin, and the exact mechanism remained unknown. It is postulated that Joseph Stalin was also poisoned to warfarin. So, what is heparin? Heparin is basically an anticoagulant. It prevents the formation of clots and extension of existing clots within the blood. However, it should be remembered it don't break down the already formed clots, which is a factor of tissue plasminogen activator. Heparin is metabolized in liver, excreted in urine, and half-life is about 1.5 hours given subcut or IV and monitored by activated partial thromboplastin time or APTT. It has two types: unfractioned heparin or standard and low molecular weight heparin. Unfractioned heparin is not fraction, act fast, initial therapy for few days until warfarin get effective, monitored by APTT and given IV only in the admitted patients. While low molecular weight heparin contains examples of enoxaparin, Clexane, which we use in routine, and half-life is 2 to 4 times longer than the standard heparin, 3 to 6 hours. Its response is predictable and it doesn't need any monitoring. So, pharmacology and mechanism of action of heparin and warfarin. Heparin has a bioavailability of 22 to 40%, and if given IV, it has an immediate action, while if given subcutaneously, it will take 20 to 30 minutes, while its peak plasma time is about 2 to 4 hours. Its distribution is through the protein bounded, and it is partially metabolized in liver and partially in reticuloendothelial system. There are no metabolites of heparin, and its half-life is about 60 to 90 minutes. It is excreted in urine. There are many formations available for heparin, which includes Heplock solution, which we use in CV line, injectable solutions, and pre-mixed solutions. Warfarin has an onset of action of about 36 to 48 hours, and it stays in the body for about 2 to 5 days. Its peak plasma time is about 1.5 to 3 days, and distribution is also protein bounded like heparin. Its half-life is 20 to 60 hours, but it depends upon the comorbid conditions of the patient. It is available in tablets of 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 and 10 mg. Now the mechanism of action of heparin. We know that in intrinsic pathway there is a factor 10A which converts the factor 2A to factor 2 to 2A from prothrombin to thrombin. Thrombin helps in conversion of factor 1 fibrinogen to factor 1A fibrin. Also there is a factor 12 which is converted into factor 12A, which in turn activates factor 1 to 1A. Factor 1A fibrin forms a stable clot or fibrin clot. Now heparin in its both forms, unfractionated and low molecular weight heparin, acts on factor A and factor 10A and stops him from conversion of factor 2 to 2A, so ultimately stops the formation of factor 1A and fibrin clot. On the other hand, low molecular weight heparin also acts on factor 12 to 12A and is in turn stops the conversion of 1 to 1A and formation of stable and fibrin clot. In low dose, it inactivates factor 10A and inhibits conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, while in high doses, it activates the factors 9, 10, 11, 12 and thrombin and inhibits conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. Now, mechanism of action of warfarin. It interferes with the hepatic synthesis of vitamin K dependent clotting factors, which includes factor 2, 7, 9, 10 and protein C and protein S. It also depletes the functional vitamin K reserves, which in turn reduces the synthesis of active clotting factors. Heparin is used in maintaining the catheter patency, which we are known as hep block. When the fluids are not given through the CV line, then we block the CV line via a solution made up of heparin. Heparin and warfarin is also used in treating and in prophylaxis of deep venous thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. It is also used in acute coronary syndromes, which includes myocardial infarctions, and it is also used in anticoagulation in patients with acute limb ischemia. So now we will learn how to make the Heplock solution for CV line. We know that when fluid is going through the CV line, then its lumen remains patent, but if we don't give fluid in the CV line, then there are chances the CV line get blocked and
and this CV line getting blocked is should be changed, and there is no other option. So to prevent this, there is already made Haplock solutions available in the market, but they are not readily available everywhere, so you have to make the solution by yourself. You know that 1 ml of heparin oil contains 5000 units of heparin. So if we take 1 ml from this vial and dilute it in 9 ml of 0.9% normal saline and dextrose water, then it will make a solution of 10 ml, and each ml of this 10 ml solution will contain 500 units of heparin. Now, if we take 1 ml solution from 10 ml and dilute it in a 4 ml normal saline and dextrose water, then it will make 5 ml solution, and each ml of this solution will contain 100 units of heparin. And this is the dose of Hep block which should be given in the CV line when there is no fluid going through the CV line. And care should be taken that this fluid should not go IV, and it should remain within the lumen of the CV line. So keep this 5 ml syringe containing 100 units per ml and give 1 ml whenever you don't want to give fluid via CV line. Now, here comes an important topic, that how will we give prophylaxis and treat deep venous thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. So, you should keep in mind that for treating and for prophylaxis of DVT and pulmonary embolism, both unfractionated heparin and low molecular heparin can be given. But it should be kept in mind, as I discussed earlier, low molecular weight heparin is preferred over unfractionated because of ease of administration and no strict monitoring and no serious side effects of low molecular heparin as compared to the unfractionated heparin. But unfractionated heparin is used commonly in those patients with low GFR because we know that there are no metabolites of the unfractionated heparin. Now, heparin is given either prophylactically in high-risk patients to prevent the disease from occurring, and for treating the patient if DVT has already occurred. Now, first we will know how we use unfractionated heparin. For prophylaxis in high-risk patient, and there is a list of risk factors which make a patient high risk for developing DVT. You give 1 ml of unfractionated heparin which contains 5000 units subcut 3 times a day or 2 times a day, or you can give 3500 units twice a day, which roughly make 1.5 ml of unfractionated heparin. But it should be noted that no more than 3 ml, that is 15,000 of unfractionated heparin, should be given in one day. And for treatment, there are 3 regimes which are followed worldwide. First regime is, first you give IV bolus of 80 units per kg stat, that is when patient is admitted in the ward, and then you start the infusion of 18 units per kg per hour. And second regime is you give IV bolus of 5000 units, that is 1 ml, and then infuse 1300 units per hour. Or third regime is you give 250 units per kg subcut in stat, and then 250 units per kg twice a day. Now let me give you an example. For example, if you want to treat a DVT in 70 kg male, then according to the most commonly used formula, first you give IV bolus of 80 units per kg stat. This is only for one time, when patient is admitted in the ward. Then infusion of 18 units per kg per hour. So let us calculate the bolus. For example, in a 70 kg male and 80 units per kg, 80 multiplied by 70, it is round about 5600 units of heparin. It makes up to round about 1.12 ml of heparin. To make it in a round figure, we give 1 ml of heparin. It is given stat. Now, after giving the stat dose, we use the formula infusion of 18 units per kg per hour. So 18 units multiplied by the weight of the patient 70, it is almost 1260 units for 1 hour. This is the 1 hour unit. Now in 24 hours we multiply by this 1260 units multiplied by 4, it gives us about 30,240 units. Now if you already know that 1 ml contains 5,000 units, then this 30,000 contains roughly about 6 ml of heparin per 24 hours. Now it is get confirmed that you have to give infusion of 6 ml of heparin in 24 hours. So you have to put this 6 ml of unfractioned heparin in 94 ml of 0.9% normal saline in a microburette. In microburette there is 100 ml container, and when we put 6 ml of unfractioned heparin, it will give roundly about 30,000 units of heparin. So it should be noted that 1 ml of microburette contains 60 drops. So 100 ml will contain 6,000 drops, or we can say that in microburette there are about 6,000 drops. Now if we put this 6 ml solution or 30,000 units, it means that 6,000 drops of heparin contains 30,000 units of heparin. So you have to give 600 drops in 24 hours which contain 30,000 units of heparin. So divide these 6,000 units in 24 hours, then we get the equation of 250 drops per hour. And if we further divide into minutes, then we divide per hour 250 into 60 minutes per hour. So divided by 60, it gives 4 drops per minute. So you have to give 4 drops per minute, 1 drop after every 15 seconds to complete the infusion of 100 ml of normal saline containing 30,000 units of heparin in 24 hours. Now this equation can be applied everywhere in those solutions which are given by the microburette, that if we give 1 drop after every 15 seconds, or if we give 4 drops per minute, then microburette will get finished in 24 hours. Also you can calculate how much heparin will be in 1 drop of microburette, that is 30,000 units in 6,000 drop. So in each drop of microburette, if we put 30,000 units of heparin, then each drop of heparin will contain 5 units of heparin. Now when we using fractioned heparin, which is low molecular weight heparin, which is most commonly used. Now for prophylaxis, it differs in different surgical cases. For example, for abdominal surgeries, we give 40 milligram subcut 2 hours pre-operatively, and then daily once a day for 7 to 10 days. For total knee replacement, we give 30 milligram subcut 12 to 24 hours pre-operatively, and then twice a day daily for 10 to 35 days until the risk factors of DVT get reduced. For total hip replacement, we give 40 milligram subcut 9 to 15 hours pre-operatively, and then daily once a day for 10 to 35 days until the risk factors of DVT get reduced. For patients with restricted mobility, which are obese and there are other amputated patients, we give 40 milligram subcut daily once a day for 6 to 11 days. Now for treating the patients in outdoor patients without pulmonary embolism who visited us in the outdoor, we give 1 milligram per kg subcut twice a day in conjunction with warfarin. Warfarin is discussed later in this presentation. And in admitted patient in ward who gets operated or who are going to operated and has and already developed DVT, we give 1 milligram subcut twice a day or 1.5 milligram per kg subcut once a day. And it should be considered that this heparin should be administered at same time of the day in conjunction with warfarin. Now warfarin will be discussed later in this presentation in detail, but you should know that we will start warfarin within 72 hours of starting enoxaparin, and we will continue enoxaparin. Enoxaparin is low molecular weight heparin, and we will continue enoxaparin for 5 days until INR become 2 to 3, and then we will stop low molecular weight heparin and continue with warfarin. Many people don't start warfarin until the INR become 2 to 3, but it should be noted that warfarin has a long duration of action, onset of action. So you have to start warfarin at the within the 72 hours of starting heparin. So start warfarin at 2 to 5 milligram oral tablet once a day for 2 days on day 1 and 2 of low molecular weight or unfractioned heparin. Whichever heparin you are giving, you have to give 2 to 5 milligram warfarin on day 1 and 2 and continue to overlap it with heparin until desired INR, which we achieve usually in 5 days, is maintained for 24 hours. Then desired INR is 2 to 3, and then if this 2 to 3 INR is getting maintained for 24 hours, then we discontinue heparin. Check INR after 2 days and adjust the dose accordingly. This is discussed later in this presentation on the topic of anticoagulation. Now the typical maintenance dose is about 2 to 10 milligram. For surgery related DVT and pulmonary embolism, duration of treatment is warfarin is about up to 3 months. So now we come to the anticoagulation, either intermittent or continuous. So let us discuss first the differences between the intermittent and the continuous heparin. In intermittent transfusion of the heparin, first we give the bolus of 8,000 or 10,000 units. Either it is 1.8 to 2 ml of heparin IV bolus. Then we give the maintenance dose, which includes 50 to 70 units per kg. Roughly it turn out to be 5,000 to 10,000 units, 4 hourly or 6 hourly. And the continuous heparin infusion consists of bolus of 1 ml, that is 5,000 units, and then the IV infusion of 20,000 to 40,000 units per 24 hours. These both regimes are for anticoagulation. Now, how we will give start and monitor or stop heparin and warfarin? So suppose a patient came to ER for acute limb ischemia, which includes both a firearm injury or a trauma to the vessel, for which we are going to repair the vessel, and for that we have to give infusion pre-op and post-op period. Or it is due to atherosclerotic change or which suddenly causes a thrombus which makes the embolus in a distal vessel and causes acute limb ischemia, and patient came in the emergency with excruciating pain. Then at that time we start heparin pre-op, per-op and post-op, along with the Fogarty catheterization of the vessel. Now when patient came to ER, give bolus of 1 to 2 ml, that is 5,000 units to 10,000 units of unfractioned heparin over 5 minutes. This is the most common mistake, that we when the patient came to emergency, we immediately take 1 ml and transfuse it in a flush into the IV line. This method is wrong. We have to give heparin 1 ml or 2 ml in a 5 ml syringe and slowly given into the IV line
over 5 minutes. Then we start the infusion of 800 to 1400 units per hour, which makes up to 20,000 or 33,600 units per 24 hours. This infusion can be started after the operative period. While during the operative period, 1 ml bolus of the infusion is necessary or is sufficient. Now, when patient shifted to ward and the operation is completed, so we start the infusion of the heparin of 800 to 1400 units per hour. We send the APTT after 4 to 6 hours, not immediately, and target to achieve of this PTT is 60 to 80 seconds. This is about 1.5 to 2 times the above limit of the normal value. The normal value is 35 to 40 seconds. If this target is not achieved, then there are many possibilities. First, if PTT is less than 50 seconds, when you send the PTT after 6 hours and it came out to be less than 50 seconds, what to do? Give one bolus more stat and increase the transfusion rate which patient is already receiving to 120 units per hour. What this 120 is, the increase is in the already infusing the heparin. That is, now the total infusion rate becomes 920 units per hour from 800 units per hour. Now, second possibility is if PTT is between the 50 to 59 seconds, then only increase the infusion rate. That is 120 units per hour, which turns out to be 920 units per hour, and you don't have to give the bolus. If PT is 60 to 80 seconds, do nothing. Repeat PTT after 24 hours. You are giving the 100% right dose of heparin. If PTT came out to be 80 to 110 seconds, that is, it's more than the target value, then hold the infusion of the heparin for 30 minutes and decrease the rate of infusion by 80 units per hour. That is, now the dose of heparin going is 720 units per hour. If PTT is more than 110 seconds, then hold the infusion for 1 hour and decrease the rate by 160 units per hour, that is 640 units per hour. In all these cases, repeat PTT after 4 to 6 hours until the PTT comes to 60 to 80 seconds, which is our target dose. Now, here comes the another thing of warfarin. There are two school of thoughts. Many people says that you should not give heparin and warfarin together in the first admission of the patient, while books like Oxford Handbook and Medscape tell us that you should start warfarin, first dose of heparin, along with the first bolus of the heparin the patient receive. So we will go with the book. So when you give the first bolus of heparin of 1 ml, at that time give 10 milligram of warfarin orally. This is the first dose, and after that immediately send INR. So you have to send INR and PTT both, but keep in mind PTT should be sent after 4 to 6 hours, while INR should be sent after 16 hours due to a long life of the half-life of the heparin. And also tell the laboratory that patient is on warfarin. So after 16 hours, when INR came, if it is less than 1.8, then give additional 5 to 10 milligram of warfarin 24 hours after the first dose, preferably on the same time the first dose was given. And then if INR is greater than 1.8, then you give 0.5 milligram of warfarin 24 hours after the first dose. This will be a second dose. Now do the INR daily for 5 days, then adjust the third dose according to the table given in the next slide. Keeping that in mind that we have to achieve the target INR of 2 to 3, whether it is achieved in first dose, second dose, or in the subsequent doses. And also keep that in mind, both these processes are going side by side. You have to keep an eye on both heparin and warfarin side by side. So the third dose depends upon the INR. If INR is less than 2, it will be at 10 milligram. If 2, 5 milligram. If 2.5, 4 milligram. 2.9, 3 milligram. 3.3, 2 milligram. 3.6, 0.5 milligram. And if INR becomes more than 4, then you have to miss the dose and give 1 to 2 milligram on the next day. So the maintenance dose are also given in this slide. So if INR is more than 4, that is 4.5 to 6, then miss the next 2 doses of warfarin and repeat the INR in 3 to 5 days and restart when the INR become less than 5. If INR becomes too high, that is 6 to 8, then stop warfarin and in both cases. Keep that in mind. If INR becomes more than 4, you have to skip the doses and stop the warfarin. If INR is more than 8 with minor bleeding or epistaxis, then stop the warfarin and give 0.5 to 2.5 milligram of vitamin K oral and check INR daily, 24 hourly. If major bleeding occurs, for example intracranial hemorrhage occurs, then stop the warfarin and give injection vitamin K IV 5 to 10 milligram slowly along with prothrombin complex concentrate 50 units per kg. It contains factor 9 concentrate and provides more rapid and complete reversal of warfarin than FFP. So it is superior to so prothrombin complex concentrate is superior to FFP in controlling the major bleed or overdose of heparin. You can also give fresh frozen plasma if prothrombin complex concentrate is not available. The dose of fresh frozen plasma is 15 milligram per kg. Involve the hematologist and measure the INR on alternate days until stable, then after 14 days and after 6 weeks. Now the most important question: when to stop heparin and warfarin? Stop heparin as soon as the INR becomes greater than 2. Now this is a very important point, that if you do INR after 16 hours after the first dose and you find heparin, you find the INR greater than 2, then stop the heparin. It is not necessary that you have to continue the heparin for 3 or 5 days. The function of heparin stops and when INR becomes greater than 2, because it shows that warfarin is taking its action. You should remember that we give heparin only in the time to cover the time which warfarin takes to keep onset its action. If heparin is given for more than 5 days, that is after 5 days the INR is not going for more than 2, then also check platelets for thrombocytopenia, because it is the side effect of heparin when given for more than 5 days. Warfarin can be continued for whole life as maintaining dose on which the INR of patient remains stable. So because it can be taken orally, so patient can take it at home, but it should be taken care of that the INR of the patient should be kept between 2 and 3 on the maintenance dose of heparin. Now, the important thing is if patient has to undergo surgery. So stop the unfractioned heparin 4 to 6 hours before the surgery. Stop the low molecular weight heparin 24 hours before the surgery, and stop warfarin 5 days before the surgery. If INR is stable, then give vitamin K 3 milligram IV or oral the night before the surgery. And in urgent surgery, in emergency cases, check INR and give prothrombin 15 to 30 units per kg. Now coming towards the last slides of this presentation, how to treat heparin overdose poisoning and how to treat warfarin overdose. Now, if symptoms of heparin overdose starts, which includes nosebleeds, coffee ground vomiting, melena, hematuria, excessive or unexplained bruising. Basically, the earliest symptom is unexplained bruising or excessive bruising or nosebleed. Then stop heparin infusion immediately and start protamine sulfate 1 milligram IV for 100 units of heparin in 15 minutes. But you should take in mind that the amount of heparin we are giving, and according to this formula, for 100 units 1 milligram, it will make more than 50 milligram of protamine sulfate. So you have to give maximum dose of 50 milligram and don't exceed with that. Now, how to start warfarin overdose and poisoning. Warfarin toxicity overdose is defined is INR is 3, or in some books 3.5 in patient with mechanical heart valve. Psychiatric evaluation of patient is necessary because all these patients are taking warfarin orally at home and they need to be evaluated from the psychiatry. If INR becomes more than 8 with minor bleeding or epistaxis, then stop warfarin and start 2.5 to 2.5 milligram vitamin K oral and check INR daily 24 hourly. If there is any major bleed which include intracranial hemorrhage, then stop warfarin and start injection vitamin K IV 5 to 10 milligrams slowly and give protamine sulfate complex give prothrombin complex concentrate 50 units per kg, which contain factor 9, and it provides more rapid and complete reversal of warfarin than FFP. If you cannot arrange prothrombin complex concentrate, then at that moment you can give fresh frozen plasma 15 ml per kg and give tranexamic acid and involve hematologist. If both FFP and prothrombin complex concentrate not available, you can simply transfuse a whole blood after blood grouping and cross matching. It is not recommended that patients without bleeding receive FFP or PCC. Now, contraindications of heparin and warfarin. Heparin is contraindicated when patient is on certain drugs, which includes estradiol, mifepristone, human prothrombin concentrate complex, azithromycin, ceftriaxone, clarithromycin, enoxaparin, levothyroxine, warfarin, and warfarin is also contraindicated. These are the most common contraindications, although there is a large list of drugs which can interact with heparin and warfarin and can be dangerous, but these major things So this was all about heparin and warfarin. If you have any questions or query regarding the presentation or any difficulty in understanding the procedure, then you can post your comment in the comment section. Thank you so much, and keep watching and keep sharing my surgical adventures.